Thank you very much.
Thank you, James Sunderland.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for calling me for the graveyard shift. There's been loads of passion and emotion this afternoon in this very important debate, but I want to give my view, please, as a relatively new member and I hope pragmatist. Today is about the past, the present and the future, and it's about people, many of whom were terribly caught up in the Troubles. It's already clear that this bill will not be a panacea, far from it, but it does have defined outcomes which I believe to be broadly positive for reasons that I'll outline. And nobody will pretend that this is at all easy or that it is a formality. I want to begin, if I may, by commending the Secretary of State and his staff at the NIO for acting throughout in good faith. This is legally very difficult, it's also politically very sensitive. But it's required strategic patience, it's required huge personal and professional resilience under pressure. And this is ultimately a no-win statute, because it won't bring people back, and it won't bring solace for victims and their families, and that those who we should be holding to account may now never be brought to justice. So I believe that the statute will ultimately provide some solace and some closure, but not a lot. And despite all of its imperfections, I believe that it will do what it says on the tin, as the least worst option. It's done the rounds. It has been through the Irish government, it's been the veterans groups, it has been the victims groups, and it's probably the missing chapter of the Good Friday Agreement 24 years ago. Therefore, it's no surprise to anybody that it's coming. And it has received, in my view, due diligence. It's taken longer than expected. And yes, the NIO has received criticism, not least from these benches, for the strategic pause that's been necessary. But it is a manifesto promise. It was in the Queen's speech, and it's finally been delivered. And it's now deliverable. But it's a heavy responsibility too for the government. What I really want to say about the bill is in relation, first of all, to veterans, veterans groups, and those who may still be serving. Do I think the bill is the right thing to do to protect veterans and vexatious complaints? The simple answer is yes. Why? Because it breaks the cycle, it ends the misery, it ends the knocks on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we owe it to these people who served in good faith in Northern Ireland. And I want to commend, if I may, the good work of the member for Plymouth Moor View, and also for Chingford and Wood Green, and so many veterans groups have acted in this space. It's gone on for too long, and it needs to be killed now. But of course, you can't deliver legacy protection for veterans in isolation. It has to be able to withstand legal challenge. It has to be Article 2 compliant. It has to get through Strasbourg and the Human Rights Act. So the principle of legal equivalence underpins the statute because it has to. And therefore, the premise of conditional amnesty is rightly pivotal. And it was right to move away from the original premise of what might be termed new and compelling evidence. Why? Who decides this? And how do you draw the line in law? It's impossible. The bottom line is that you cannot. So I can understand the logic of why a blanket statute limitations has been introduced and why I think it's now the right thing to do. What does the bill actually do? Well, we know it establishes the Independent Commission for Reconciliation and Information Recovery. So, in theory, it creates an environment of openness which may give answers and some closure. But I appreciate the flaws in the argument. It will grant immunity from prosecution to those who engage with the Commission. The important point here is that legal equivalence does not mean moral equivalence. So it's right that conditional amnesty is dependent on engagement. Absolutely the right thing to do. It will end troubles-based criminal investigations and protracted legal proceedings, the right thing to do. And it should commission a record of every troubles-related death from the ICRIR. And the list goes on. But, in the interest of balance, the PSNI has a caseload currently of at least 900 cases that are currently unsolved. Op Canada, mentioned earlier, for many has unfinished business. Victims and families will not get the resolution they seek. And I'm also acutely conscious of the concerns of those who believe that protagonists just won't engage. In my view, we've got to give this a chance, and it's important that we do. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, just to finish if I can, this bill is divisive. We've heard it a lot today. And we have to go forward as carefully as we can, mindful of the particular sensitivity of victims' families. That is a given. But the time is now, 24 years on, for the Good Friday Agreement. We have no choice. We have to deliver the promise that was made, not least to our veterans. And lastly, if I may, I am absolutely bewildered personally and disappointed by Labour's decision today not to be here and to vote against the bill. Aside from doing the right thing for our security services and our veterans, this is ultimately about national politics, not party politics. And I hope that my colleagues on the opposite benches will do the right thing this afternoon.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. I've certainly laboured the point, but it's a point that really does need labouring. Does he agree with me that Labour are no longer or are not the party for veterans, and actions tonight will be seen across the veteran community?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. My personal view, Mr Deputy Speaker, is that what we have to do is show the requisite support to our veterans, our armed forces and our security services. And this, ultimately today, is about two things. It's about drawing a line under vexatious complaints, but it's also about hoping that Northern Ireland can emerge for a peaceful and prosperous future. And I very much hope that happens. Mr Speaker, thank you.
Ian Paisley.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Speaker, for calling me in this debate.